Now we're live.
Are we really live now?
Yeah, because I hit the go live button.
Oh, okay. Well, Joe Rao, Fios 1 News, Lower Hudson Valley.
Or so he claims. I'm Joe Cioffi, Fios 1 News, New Jersey, and Fios 1 News, Long Island. So I claim.
Okay. Well, I believe you. That's your title.
Yeah, so guess what?
What?
So on my YouTube show tonight, one of my regulars asked me a question that was actually a very logical question to ask, and yet no one has asked it up until now. And that question is this.
You're right.
So the November snowfall that we had of for New York City was 6.3. For Long Island, it depended on where you were. For the Hudson Valley,
6 to 12 in the Hudson Valley. Yeah.
Well, somebody asked this question: that has it ever happened where the biggest snowfall of the winter occurred
in November,
in the month of November? So I went back, and at least from what I can do from just quick observation.
Okay.
So it's probably right on the first part of this.
Okay.
So in case anybody wants, I'm going to give you guys. I'll put it in the. Oops, that's the wrong one. There we go. I'll put it in the chat. So this link I'm going to put up in the chat right now. This will give you the snowfall for every year going back to 1946-47 for Brookhaven Labs.
Okay.
And this one is the one from Central Park, which goes back to 1869. So everybody can take a look at this either now or in their spare time.
Right.
So at least as far as Long Island is concerned, I went back and I looked, and it was actually a fairly easy conclusion. It has never happened on the records anyway, going back to 1947-48, which is the first year of Brookhaven Labs. So
right.
The snowfall for Brookhaven in November was 4.6.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a low enough bar that if something does occur, it could be broken. There's still time to take that out.
Right.
But 4.6 is the bar. Now, I went and looked at the Central Park records, and this is where it got a little bit tougher to figure. I figured going back to 1939-40 on, it would be the biggest snowfall of the winter. But before that, it's a little harder to figure because in 1938, for example, there was 12.8 for the month of November, and that actually was higher than any of the other months ahead. So I don't know what the individual snowfall was, if that was a 1 foot snowstorm, because there is one on the books for the month of November.
Okay, well, let me just interrupt and say that my mom and also her brother, my Uncle Ron, say that my grandfather took them to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and one year it was snowing, and there was quite a bit of snow on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They had the parade, but so that may very well have been. Now my mom, well, I'm not going to say how old my mom was, but they were both alive at that time, and that might have been the year
38, 39.
Yeah.
It's every November that decade, except for 1932-33, which there's a zero, had at least a trace.
Mm-hmm.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those 10 years actually had measurable snow, which was pretty interesting. So, all right, so maybe we got to go back and look at 1938 and 39 specifically one day when we got time. Then if you go back further, for example, 1898-99, there's 19 inches for the month.
Wow.
So now there's a 25-inch back for, that's November, December, January, February. There was 25 inches in that month.
Right.
So you have to really kind of look at the individual snowfalls. And there are a few years back, of the years back here, like 1882-83, 14 inches for the month. 92-93, 6.3. So were all these other snowfalls from small events, from large events? I don't know. So, but at least since 1939, we can say that that would be the biggest snowfall, where the biggest snowfall fell in the month of November for the winter season.
Right. Wow. So it doesn't happen too often.
If it's happened at all.
And you mentioned more than a few times that a significant snowfall in the tri-state area is like in November. is like a 1 in 10-year event.
Right.
And yet I saw in that decade of the 30s that seems
there's a whole bunch.
There's a whole bunch of them there.
Right.
So.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 10 had at least an inch.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think if we go back a little further, the 1880s, you had 1, 2, 3 that had at least an inch, fractions in 2 others. And in the 1890s, you had 1, 2, 3, 4 that had at least an inch, and 3 of them that had at least 5 inches. And then the other 2 were, the other one was half an inch for the month in 94, 95. So,
personal memory, I can remember there was a Thanksgiving in 1971 where it was kind of a mixed bag in New York, and there was a lot more in the way of snow just north and west in the Hudson Valley. And 1987, it was Veterans Day. November 11th, 1987.
Yeah, that I remember.
And we had some heavy slushy snow.
1.1 for 87, 88.
Right, and
that might have been still in the era when they used to measure it on the car tops in Central Park.
I remember it was a slushy, significant slushy amount, at least in my house. I was living in Levittown back then on Long Island. So those are the only 2 cases, aside from what we just had this past November, of any kind of significant or substantial snow being reported in the tri-state area in the month of November. So it doesn't happen too often.
No, it doesn't. So everybody's, folks are chatting about next week and Tuesday. I think a lot of what's running, I haven't really seen anything that's out there in terms of chatter. I don't know if you took a look.
Joe, it's still early in the ball game. I think the overnight runs tomorrow night, or maybe the afternoon runs on Saturday, will start getting a good firm grip on the matter and the situation. But until then,
would you agree with me on this? Well, 2 things. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm just a little bit tired tonight. So let me get my energy level up. So would you agree with me on these 2 matters? One, this doesn't look to me like it's going to be anything major for us. That depending on how much cold air we have and whether it winds up playing out where there's a little bit of a secondary there that keeps the primary from getting too strong, that this could wind up being maybe a moderate event for somebody. And the other thing is, I forgot what the other thing is. What was the other thing? There were 2 things.
As you get older, folks, this happens. I think, Joe...
What was the other thing? It's crazy. I had 2 things I wanted to tell you.
Well,
that was the first one. All right, it'll come to me. I got to start writing this stuff down.
This pattern that we're looking for next week is no different than everything that we have seen up until this point in time, and that is, you look at the upper air, and we use the 540 decameter line or ribbon as the
last
snow,
blue line.
The last blue line.
The last blue line. You
as
talk,
rain,
and I'll bring the maps
as
up.
the rain-snow line, that's in the normal case. But what we've been seeing is that we've been seeing storms that have been warming up dramatically in the upper part of the atmosphere, while the lower part of the atmosphere remains cold, shallow layer of cold air. And what does that translate into? That translates into maybe an initial shot of snow, but eventually as the warm air aloft takes hold, instead of getting a nice snow cover, you get snow that changes over to ice pellets, sleet, freezing rain, and then maybe eventually even plain rain.
Right.
And we may very well see something like that again on Tuesday. Not a flat-out snowstorm, but again, kind of a wintry mix, a mixed bag. Now, how much snow we put on before the mixing occurs, that's going to be the question for Tuesday.
I remembered what I was going to say, and
okay.
That is, at least to the folks at home who see snow maps that are put up. I just want to really emphasize, because I looked at them as well. They're entirely useless as a forecast tool 5 days out. They were only moderately useful when maybe we're inside the 72 or 48 hour time frame. But to look at them now, they really tell you nothing. So please try not to get too wrapped up in those things. I usually don't show them when I'm writing my weather pieces. Right. If I do show them, it's maybe more to illustrate a general area where you might see some snow accumulation. But in terms of using them for specific amounts, it really is a waste of time.
It's a disservice. It's a disservice.
It really is.
I mean, if you see somebody either on social media or on television or even quoting on radio, giving you amounts or even suggesting amounts 5 days in advance, it's ridiculous because it's going to change. There's no question it's going to change.
Well, here's my thing. We're talking about it not being major, Joe, and I brought up the GFS I brought the GFS up from late this afternoon. This is for Saturday morning, and we've got a trough in the west and a ridge in the east, and I can't think of a single time where we've gotten a major snowstorm out of a situation with the trough in the west and the ridge in the east.
Right?
Can you?
No.
Okay. I can recall a couple of instances where we had supercharged warm fronts. I remember the one in the late 80s that came off that really bitter cold December we had, and we transitioned over to ridiculous warm for January, February, and March. The day after Christmas, it was December 27th, we had a supercharged warm front that dumped about 8 inches of snow, and it ended as drizzle. And the next day, it was in the upper 50s.
Right.
So that was an instance where you basically had a ridge in the east, trough in the west scenario. Other than that, I don't ever remember, ever remember seeing any kind of major snowfall. So it would argue against it. And I bring that up because we showed it last night with the parallel GFS run that was just incredibly far-fetched. The way I think this plays out is the models today. The European, the GFS, they seem to be kind of coalescing on this idea where you're going to get this system coming out of the western trough, but instead of lifting up, so where you wind up getting a deepening low going to the Great Lakes, it undercuts the ridge in the east to some degree. So you wind up with a low, and you see it here, it kind of runs out ahead.
Right.
You still have a primary low that goes to the Great Lakes, but it doesn't get overly strong. And the thing I would just caution is if this low on the southern end of this lead low that comes out, if that winds up being weaker, you're going to wind up with a wrapped up primary low. It'll snow for maybe 30 minutes to an hour. Inland areas might snow for 2 hours, and then it goes over to rain.
Right.
So I think that's where the risk is. So we don't know the answer to that question right now.
And as I suggested, there one possibility which not too many people have been considering is that over the next couple of days the high gets revved up to a point, the high over New England, to a point where it's going to try to squelch the north and east movement of that snow shield, and maybe actually keeps a lot of the frozen precipitation just off to the south, squirting like, say, near or just underneath the New York City area. Now that's not likely to happen.
So let's go back to this. This was that idea.
Right.
That's what's possible. Stronger high. This is Tuesday morning. Stronger high suppresses all of this. There's not much of a feature there. Let's call it a secondary low. It gets squelched down. The primary gets wrapped up, goes up into the western lakes, and then we just get rain out of it. It'll be like a warm front, cold front.
Right.
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 I mean, that's what you're saying.
And
that's that's what the models spit out yesterday. The GFS and a couple of others spit out that idea.
Right.
And so it's not impossible that we could still kind of trend back to this, and it'll be. As I said, maybe a little bit of snow at the start or sleet, then it goes over to rain anyway.
The ensembles, however, have, at least over the last couple of runs, both European and GFS are putting a notable offshore secondary low pressure system on Tuesday and Tuesday night.
I'll bring up the 18Z ensembles of the GFS.
Near the Jersey shore. So they are saying in their own inevitable mathematical way that, hey, there is going to be some kind of a secondary system that we may have to deal with on Tuesday or Tuesday night.
Well, there it is on the.
There it is.
Okay, so this is on, but it still has a pretty wrapped up primary up here. So you're going to have to get this system to. It has to be at least a viable entity of some kind and hold the cold air in long enough.
Right.
But it is at least present on the ensembles.
And again, these are things that are not going to be able to be ferreted out or determined 4 or 5 days out. You need to get closer in and need to get more, much better data inputted into the computer models so that they can figure this out on their own. Remember, what you're seeing right now for Tuesday and Wednesday is basically the supercomputers are basically making a guess. They've got all the algorithms and equations in there, but they're doing it with very few solid weather observations, the stuff from the Pacific, satellite observations. We really need to get that much broader and more concise bunch of observations from the western part of North America inputted into the supercomputers, and that will not happen until over the weekend.
All right, so this is, by the way, I have the new NAM up now. Let's not forget that there's going to be a system coming through Sunday night,
right?
Was the first high goes out and another high starts to build in, and there's a little tiny wave on a front here. So it looks like we're going to get a period of snow Sunday night into Monday morning. I covered, Joe, for the possibility that there could be a coating to maybe somebody gets an inch or so out of this.
It's going to be dependent upon how much moisture content is with that little wave, but also don't forget, it's going to be cold right on through the weekend. This is coming in the overnight hours of Sunday night, so whatever comes in is likely to stick almost immediately. So even with a little bit of moisture, you could wake up on Monday morning with enough snow to possibly shovel, or at least enough snow to broom off your driveway or front walk before heading out to work and school.
All right, here's at least we're within 48 hours, so I think we can reasonably, at least now this is a little more reasonable. And there's some patchy 2-inch amounts, 1 to 2 inch amounts south of 78, and I think overall a coating to an inch or so would seem pretty fair to me.
Right.
All right, so we're on the same page with that.
And then the more major system comes, the major mess, if you will, Tuesday into Tuesday night. I'm getting tired of the storms with snow going over to ice or sleet or rain or whatever. If for nothing else, if you end up getting a few inches of snow and then you have ice and sleet and then rain on top of that, that makes it all the more difficult to get rid of. It makes the consistency of the snow so much heavier. And even if you have a snow blower, it's like instead of the snow blower blowing the snow away, it's just like it's kind of like regurgitating. It's like regurgitating. Blah,
exactly.
Oh
God.
It's been kind of a winter.
It's been that kind of a week too. I'm very tired. Let's see. I'm just trying to run through some of the comments tonight, and how is the cold going to get in here with a double barrel low pushing northeast?
It's not.
It really isn't.
It's not getting in here. It's already
here.
It's already here. What we're thinking of with the double barrel system, the double barrel system is going to be trying to act like an atmospheric crowbar and pry the cold air out, and in the process, we go from snow to possibly ice and sleet. Unfortunately, in this particular pattern, the effect is it's not trying to pry the cold air out from the bottom. It pries it out from the top down to the bottom. So you get the rain, and the rain comes down through the shallow layer of residual cold air and eventually turns to sleet, ice, and it's
so Matt Steckler wants to know what my definition of moderate is. It's not 6 to 12. Okay? A moderate, 6 to 12 in New Hampshire is moderate. Even actually 6 to 12 in some parts of New Hampshire could be considered light. I don't know. I mean, I throw numbers out, 2 to 4, 3 to 5, under 6.
Yeah.
Under 6 and above 3. I think that probably works. Timothy Veltman.
I'm guessing is moderate 3 to 6 at best. 6 to 12 starts getting into
the heavier, right. I
kind of consider 6 to 12 heavy.
So Matt Steckler thinks that minor is under 6 inches. Okay. Yeah, minor in lake effect maybe, but not here.
No.
Not here. Then they're arguing about this. Minor is under 3 because 6 is definitely a significant snowfall. Well, 4 is the criteria for a winter storm warning here. So I would say that 4 to 6 would be, to me, in my mind, a 3 to 6 inch snowfall is a moderate snowfall.
Scott Briller says the way New York City has been going, anything over an inch could be considered
moderate. Yeah, well, I think that's also a good point.
In this particular winter, at least, yeah.
Yeah, it just.
And I mean,
and there's the bet against too, because even if you wind up with this, you have to. It's going to be in the back of our minds remember, I've used this phrase so often, it's getting thrown back at me now too, and it should be. The trend is your friend, and you know, Joe, as well as I do. In some years, it finds a way to snow, even, and you look at situations, and you and I can recall a number of them where you think, how did this happen?
Right.
Okay, and it does. Stuff that winds up looking like it's going to be a couple of inches to 4, and you have these, you know, events where I would see on Long Island, you get these surprise pockets of 8 or 9 inches in some places, or in Jersey, or wherever it is. The opposite is true this year. There, you know, you're looking at things here where, you know, nothing's happened. So why would you think that this time around it would be any different?
My former colleague over at News 12, Rich Von Olin, the two of us had a term for what you mentioned about how this happened. How did we possibly manage to get this or whatever? We called them Gomer piles because we'd put out maybe for an inch or two. We'd wake up the next morning. There's 2 to 5 out there, and it's still snowing, and it's surprise, surprise, surprise,
Yep.
And it has happened, and it will happen again.
Right, but you got to wonder whether
I don't think we're going to see too many
this
surprises
time around. But look, let's see what the models take. Where the models take us.
This winter is more like a Sergeant Carter winter, not a Gomer pile winter.
I was watching watching Ernest Borgnine and Marty the other day.
Oh my goodness!
And you know,
what do you want to do? What do you want to do after the show tonight?
Right, exactly. And you know, it was Frank Sutton who played. Right? Was it Frank Sutton who played?
Frank Sutton.
Frank Sutton, who played Sergeant, was in Marty also.
Right.
And you know, he played one of the neighborhood friends.
He died very early.
Very young.
He was very young. I think he was only in his mid-40s when he passed away.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was heart attack, maybe. We'll have to do some research. What did I want to just recheck real quick? The new dam.
Let me tell you something, Joe. If we get 3 to 5 inches on Sunday night, I'm going to have a heart attack.
No, well, that's not it. No. The system for Sunday night's kind of weak, but you can see where the wave is. There's a whopping 1024 low off the New Jersey coast there.
Right.
And then that goes out. So now, you know, we're still too early. It only takes us to Monday morning. So it's still too early in the game to figure out anything with regards to later on Tuesday. So, you know what?
Yeah,
stay tuned.
That's good. You know, the NAM at least, I wish all the models were like that. Really.
Stopped at 84 hours.
Stopped at 84 hours. You know, then it's up to you. And in fact, that's what we used to do back when we were in our younger days.
We didn't even have 84 hours.
We didn't have it. We had the 72,
60,
the 60, and the 72.
That was it, really. The 72. We didn't even have the surface for 72.
On the DIFAX, sometimes the National Weather Service guys would refer to the 84 or the 96, but we didn't have access to that in the private sector.
No, we didn't.
So
now we have everything.
We had to make it all up.
Now some weather companies have it going out to 45 days.
Yes.
I know there's a model out there that goes out a year. I'm serious.
Well, you know,
I actually had access to it. I found it.
Don't laugh.
And I used to look at it every once in a while.
The Climate Prediction Center, their probabilities for temperature and precipitation
they go
out. They go out a year.
Yeah, but they also always, you know, I stopped looking at them because they used to just basically. They used to basically, in my view, it seemed like they used to go in there, and if you know, when November became October, they would just change the month,
right,
and not change the forecast. Like they came to work once a year, put all the maps in, and then just move them along.
Let me tell you something. They haven't done. I mean, they had alluded in their experimental 3 to 4 week forecast a few weeks ago that this whole month of February, across much of the nation, was going to be below normal, and so far I haven't seen much of that. I mean, I've seen a balancing scale. Where, like, for example, we've had our spells of very warm weather balanced out, as we will this weekend, by colder weather, but it has not been uniformly.
Well, that's here too, but it has been more consistently cold up in the Midwest and up in the plains.
Right.
It's just that, you know, we starting once that Arctic air mass pulled out at the end of January, we had the big bounce, and I think we're still kind of coming off that big bounce.
Right.
Now we'll go back to colder weather. But
Maybe.
we'll see.
We'll see.
So we'll be back. You and I will be here tomorrow night. So we'll
probably still be equally confused about Tuesday.
Exactly.
But we'll have a better handle on it.
Just trying to think of anything else. Oh, for those of you who might be interested, you can check out my YouTube channel. I have a playlist on there of instructional videos, and I'm starting to put short instructional videos on some of the maps that you see, so at least you know what we're talking about. Today I showed the sounding, and I explained what a sounding is. So if you want to check that out, you can go to my YouTube channel, Joe Cioffi, and just look at the instructional videos playlist and tomorrow I'm going to put something else on, and maybe the next
Joe,
day put something else.
You remind. I mean, like going back into the '70s now, and I don't know if you had Professor Gesselman, but I mean, he used to make us plot TTAAs and TTBBs off of Circuit C.
Yeah.
Remember those days?
Yes.
And the idea about it, I wouldn't know how to do. I'm sorry. I mean, I just automatically look at stuff now on the automatic stuff on social media.
Which is fine, because you know what? It gives you time to do other stuff. It just makes more work for you, but you know,
we used to plot the weather company used to plot. We used to plot the radar on a piece of plastic. You know, 11111 22211. You know,
yeah, all the echoes. I know.
Oh God.
I know.
And now it's just like.
And now it's gone.
What you kids. And we used to pay. I mean, the companies back then, they had to pay like hundreds of dollars a month to run the wires in and get all that data. This gentleman used to come sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning, just so he could get a look at the new computer run at where I was working back then. And now it's just like you go sit up by your computer and
should have had my head examined, I guess.
Foos away. No, this is why
we live. This is the passion that we have. This is who we are. And we got to go, because we also want to go, have to do our final shows and then go home and go CP buys.
Yes.
Which is what we really want to do. So we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. And by the way, if you haven't done it already, download my app, my free weather app on Google Play. Free. It's on Google Play. It's on the App Store. It's just search meteorologist Joe Cioffi, which you can see it right up there in the corner. Okay. He has an iPhone. You think he's downloaded it yet? No. He could watch this show from the darn thing. He still hasn't downloaded it.
Well, you know, Joe, I'm coming in here with you, and I can watch your shows.
Right. You've had enough just to do the show once. Why'd you watch it again?
I want to blow my mind or whatever.
Yes, I know. Good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, La Fitzgerald, Brian. He's on in the morning at Fios 1 News. And then you have Addison Green. I almost said Addison Bora. Addison Green and Brittany Bora. It shows you how tired I am. Addison Green and Brittany Bora on the midday. You and I back tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.